he started the process of shortening the work week, and you know the challenge of figuring out how to make that work was one that his people really jumped on.
We were so much inspired by the design sprint. The design sprint was inspired by design thinking, and it was the way Google tried to really accelerate their portfolio companies. They wanted them to strive, and they did it a couple hundred times. And Google is you can think what you want about Google, but one thing, they are data driven. And so what they do is they have discipline of taking decisions based on data and collecting data in a very good way.
Right.
So that's the scientific method. You collect the data, and the data will tell you what you are on. And they did it a couple hundred times, and they found out that there is a flow in there, and that you can do it in 5 days. Now there is a community around that evolved it over the years. They are now doing 3 days, 2.5 days, 1.5 days, even in 60 minutes. And so there are mini sprints, design sprints on the product level. And we said, hey, this is flow, this is working. How can we translate that to what we are doing with this strategy consulting? And we applied that to market domination, the market shares, the revenue growth, using the same principles. Because also in strategy, you think you are planning, but what is planning? Planning is projecting an assumption and making it big. And the worst thing to do with an assumption is making it big. You have to make it small enough that you can test it fast.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how we came up with the strategy sprint.
No, and what I see with these companies is that once you get into the habit of doing this, or let's put it, once you do it a couple times and you do it successfully, it begins to become a habit. It becomes to be, it starts to be a way of thinking that people will apply to all kinds of things.
You want to make your sales more repeatable and reliable? Do you want to have less volatility and more growth in your revenue per month? At Strategy Sprints, we do only one thing: strategy in sprints. Strategy means having more revenue through a better offer. In sprints means having more energy in your team every week. Check out if your ROI is as high as it is for most service-based and online businesses and startups we work with, which is over 100%. You can see it in just 15 minutes by going to strategysprints.com/sales and completing our online exercise to know what your ROI would be with our accelerator program. We are ready to sprint. Are you?
I had, as one CEO put it, once he started the process of shortening the work week, and the challenge of figuring out how to make that work was one that his people really jumped on, right? And they came up with all kinds of new ideas. But even after they had moved to a 4-day week, they kept coming up with those ideas. They kept coming up with suggestions for what to do next, new products, or of potential clients, and so on. And he said that my people all act like they own the company now, and all I did was give them a day off. And it didn't just result in people working less, but really a change in the way that they thought about their place in the company, about the opportunities that they had to contribute, and a real change in the way that they approached their work, not as something simply to be completed, but as something to be continuously improved upon, which was, I think, a really powerful thing.
Beautiful. I think it's the respectful intervention of seeing them as human beings, which is the creative side of things, the spiritual. Not so much the manual creating widgets, which can be done by robots much better nowadays, but really to respect that creative part, which is really thinking about and improving and in order to improve, you had to get creative and to try out stuff. And then you are an artist and a scientist alike, right? Because you have to find new solutions, but you have to test them. So you are both an artist and a scientist, which is the beauty of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, I think that combination of sort of an experimental mindset that emphasizes both the kind of more artistic and kind of playful aspect of that is implied in the term experiment, combined with the more empirical and numbers oriented sort of meaning of the term experiment, is something that's joined together in companies that successfully sort of redesign their work days. I think the other important part of this that you touch on is that, in the companies that do this successfully, the change is one that starts at the top. You always have a CEO or a charismatic leader, a founder who says, we're going to try, to do our work in this radically different manner. But the change, though, while inspired at the top, is really driven from the bottom. It is the employees themselves who have to figure out how to make a 4-day week work, because even in small companies, no founder knows everybody's work well enough to tell them how to do it in 4 days or in 6 hours. And so giving people the responsibility to figure out how to make that work, also is, also invests them with a great opportunity to to rethink their work and rethink their relationship with it, and to have a greater degree of autonomy, greater opportunities for play, combined with a greater need to look really closely at what they're doing and how they're doing it so that they can do it better.
Beautiful. Alex, is there something I forgot to ask?
I think the other really striking thing for me with the 4-day week is how valuable it is for for women employees, in particular for working mothers. And I think that a lot of companies have the challenge of retaining women who are juggling really complicated lives, who still want to do really good work even as they're raising kids. And we have unintentionally, over the last few decades, created an economy and a career ladder that assumes that that working moms will work as if they don't have children, raise children as if they don't work, do both to some impossibly high but not very well articulated standard, and blame them if they're unable to juggle all of this stuff simultaneously. One of the consequences, and when working mothers take on, go part-time, or take on move to flexible schedules, it's often the case that even in supportive companies, their careers stall out, right? They're seen as less visible, as less committed. They're less available for new projects, and so as a result, their ability to contribute to the organization and for the organization to make full use of their skills is diminished. One of the things that happens in companies that move to 4-day weeks, though, is that all of that structural and cultural stuff, all of those limitations disappear, because it's no longer just the one person who is working 4 days. Now everybody is doing it. Further, because you're doing it as an organization, you all share the collective challenge and the collective burden of figuring out how to make it work. It's also the case that companies that move to a 4-day week are places that require a slightly different skill set, right? it turns out anybody can sit in a chair for 12 hours a day. Anybody can get a task done if you stay up until midnight. That is actually, that's actually less impressive than being able to really be ruthless with your time, to focus, to get it, to get that task done in a couple hours rather than 12 hours, and to move on to the next thing. And who is it who has to develop the capacity for really good time management, for focus, for being able to work on one thing in a really concentrated manner and then move on to the next thing and the next? Who is it who values their time more than just about anybody else and has the skills necessary to make good use of it? It's working moms. And this is, I don't know a working mother who doesn't possess those skills. And so what happens with companies that move to 4-day weeks is that, sort of being a working mom in conventional organizations is something that, that costs you, right? There is a penalty for being a working mom. In companies that move to 4-day weeks, in contrast, working moms can command a premium, right? They're that signals a set of abilities, that companies now really value, and they're able to make use of in a way that companies that value overwork, that treat long hours as a sign of commitment, just cannot get their hands around. And one of the reasons that these companies that move to 4-day weeks are so successful is that they're able to tap into a labor market, right, of highly skilled professionals who are undervalued in the traditional market, who, when given the chance to to work in this new way, are super successful, super committed, and super productive. So it turns out to be a real win-win, both for for working moms who want to continue their careers, and for companies who otherwise would really struggle to get employees at that kind of professional level with those skills and those abilities. So I think that's the last really important thing that I think for companies that move to 4-day weeks can teach us.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Alex. This is so helpful for everybody working from home and for everybody thinking about how to organize for flow and not just for hustle, but really to do things better, more effective, and more efficient for everybody. So thank you so much, Alex. This is so relevant right now. And people listening, buy his books. There is the trilogy, and the newest is called Shorter. All right. Thank you, Alex.
Oh, thank you, Simon. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Keep rolling.
We all know that working in sprints is better, but how do we know what we should work on? You're in luck, because we have a 15-minute exercise that will give you complete clarity on where to take your project next. Go to strategysprints.com/sales to complete our short exercise and meet one-on-one with an expert sprint coach to identify your #1 bottleneck. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that episode of The Strategy Show. Make sure to like this video below and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with every episode of The Strategy Show. Get daily CEO tips from CEOs for CEOs.